Good morning. Welcome to your Primetime News. I'm Dhammika Kanayaka.
The news headlines on Gold FM.
SJB issues challenge to the government over coal allegations. 2 Indonesian social media activists arrested at Katunayaka with Kush. India-Sri Lanka oil pipeline discussed by visiting Indian VP. Peace talks in jeopardy as US seizes Iranian cargo ship. Tehran undecided on attending negotiations. Premier League title race ignites as City claw back Arsenal lead.
The top story on Gold FM.
The United States Navy seized an Iranian-flagged cargo ship in the Gulf of Oman yesterday after disabling the vessel with gunfire. US President Donald Trump confirmed that the guided missile destroyer USS Spruance intercepted the 900-foot container ship named Tuska as it attempted to bypass a naval blockade. According to Central Command, the crew of the Tuska ignored repeated warnings for 6 hours before the Spruance fired several rounds into the ship's engine room. US Marines now have custody of the vessel, which was reportedly en route to the Iranian port of Bandar Abbas from Malaysia. Tehran has condemned the seizure as an act of maritime highway robbery and warned of an imminent military response. The Iranian military stated that the US violated a standing ceasefire by attacking a commercial vessel and destroying its navigational equipment. This escalation comes as a tenuous ceasefire between the two nations approaches its expiration this Wednesday. Iranian officials suggest that the seizure proves the US is not pursuing genuine diplomacy, with state media casting doubt on whether Tehran will participate in upcoming negotiations. The Strait of Hormuz remains restricted, with tracking data showing no tankers passed through the vital waterway yesterday. Iran says it will continue to limit traffic through the channel as long as the US naval blockade on its port remains in place. US Energy Secretary Chris Wright, warned that domestic gas prices, currently averaging $4.05 a gallon, may stay elevated until next year. Despite the surge in hostilities, White House announced that a high-level delegation is traveling to Pakistan for potential peace talks. Vice President J.D. Vance and Jared Kushner are expected to lead the American team. The negotiations face significant hurdles, including disputes over the fate of Iran's uranium stockpiles. Washington is reportedly seeking a 20-year pause on Iranian uranium enrichment, while Tehran has only offered a 5-year suspension. Iranian sources say their participation is conditional on the immediate lifting of the naval blockade. In a separate development, the Israeli military has opened an investigation into reports of a soldier damaging a statue of Jesus Christ in southern Lebanon. A photograph shared on social media appears to show a soldier hitting the head of the figure with a hammer in the predominantly Christian village of Debel. The Israel Defense Forces described the act as wholly inconsistent with their values and promised appropriate measures. The incident occurred in an area of southern Lebanon currently occupied by Israeli forces as they continue operations against Hezbollah strongholds.
This is the local news on Gold FM.
Energy connectivity was very much on the agenda as the visiting Vice President of India held talks in Colombo. C.P. Radhakrishnan held talks with a host of top government members yesterday, and the trip marks the first bilateral visit by an Indian Vice President to the island. Discussions in Colombo pivoted towards future economic integration, with a heavy emphasis on digital infrastructure, connectivity and energy. Addressing the media, Vice President talks, India's Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri outlined a major multinational energy hub proposed for the port city of Colombo, in fact Trincomalee.
Amara, your question about the energy hub. As you are aware, we have been discussing this for some time. It's a significant project. It's something that you are aware. We had initial discussions in 2023 about this, and subsequently it took shape as a three-way cooperation project between India, Sri Lanka and UAE. It includes the possibility of building a pipeline coming from southern India overground in Sri Lanka to Trincomalee in the first phase, and in parallel includes the possibility of developing the tank farm complex in Trincomalee. Now, we have shared a considerable amount of information on this with Sri Lanka and Sri Lankan authorities, and I can tell you that this was the subject of fairly detailed conversation even today between the two delegations at different levels. And one of the points that was made, which I also alluded to briefly in my remarks, was that progress on this project would have stood in really good stead, especially at a time like this when both energy prices and energy availability are becoming a difficult question for several countries around the world, especially in this region. So clearly there is no further time to lose in making progress on strategic projects such as these. We have not yet established a timeline on this project, but discussions continue on this given the fact that it is a complex project with significant financial outlays. There will be some time that will be taken to finalize all the details, but as I said, we did have the opportunity today to underline the importance of the project, the strategic nature of the project, and the urgency behind the project.
Beyond macroeconomic investments, the visit carries significant personal weight for the Indian diaspora. During a massive community reception in Colombo, attended by over 1,000 people, a major policy shift was announced regarding the Overseas Citizens of India, or OCI card. The card grants long-term visa-free travel and other privileges, but until now it was restricted to only a few generations of descendants. Foreign Secretary Mistry explained how the rules are changing.
The Honorable Vice President announced the extension of the eligibility for the Overseas Citizen of India card. This was hitherto limited to the fourth generation of the diaspora. The Vice President announced that in the case of Sri Lanka, this will now be extended to the fifth and the sixth generation of the diaspora. And this will benefit, in particular, the Indian origin Tamil community. The Vice President also announced a significant simplification of the procedures for obtaining the Overseas Citizen of India card. This required fairly extensive documentation thus far, but given an assessment of the objective conditions obtaining in Sri Lanka, he announced that going forward, OCI cards would now be issued on the basis of documents that in several cases are documents that are issued by the government of Sri Lanka. So certificates of registration issued by Sri Lankan authorities, India-Sri Lanka passports, or registration records maintained at the High Commission of India in Colombo or at the Assistant High Commission of India in Kandy will now also constitute acceptable and valid documents for obtaining an OCI card. This was a long-standing request of the Indian diaspora in Sri Lanka, and this will benefit a large number amongst them over here.
The streamlined process addresses a long-standing request from the Indian diaspora living in Sri Lanka. The Vice President will conclude his engagements today with a visit to Nuwara. There he is scheduled to meet with estate workers who are the beneficiaries of a flagship Indian housing project that has already delivered tens of thousands of homes across the region. Former parliamentarian Lakshman Kiriella issued a challenge for any evidence regarding previous allegations of importing low-quality coal to the country. The joint opposition released a statement yesterday regarding the coal imports and the registration or resignation of the Energy Minister. The statement noted that the resignation of the Energy Minister signifies an acceptance of responsibility for a specific matter or an admission of an error or fault. However, the opposition maintained that the government cannot wash its hands of the situation by placing the blame solely on the minister, stating that attributing the entire responsibility to him remains entirely unfair. Police Narcotics Bureau officers arrested 2 Indonesian social media activists at the Kartanayak International Airport early this morning with a haul of the narcotic kush, valued at over 64 million rupees. The suspects allegedly purchased the drugs in Bangkok, Thailand and transported them to Bangalore, India before attempting to smuggle them into this country. Officers discovered 6 kilograms and 401 grams of kush concealed in 5 packets inside 2 suitcases with an estimated street value of 64,010,000 rupees. The arrested suspects, a 22-year-old male and a 30-year-old woman, will be produced before the Negombo Magistrates Court. In a separate operation, the Western Province North Crime Division arrested 2 men in Kottav and Homagama with 2.4 kilograms of ice, 112 grams of heroin and 8 grams of cocaine. The suspects, aged 31 and 42, and residents of Panipitiya and Homagama, were arrested following information provided by a suspect currently in custody of the Western Province North Crime Division. Police advised the public to avoid unnecessary intimacy with strangers when using public transport and to exercise extreme caution when accepting food or drink. This warning follows the recent arrest of a man who drugged 3 women travelling on a bus from Anuradhapura to Colombo. The suspect allegedly provided drugged food to the victims before stealing cash and jewellery valued at 1.7 million rupees. Officers arrested the 54-year-old suspect in the Pandulagama area of Anuradhapura following an extensive investigation into the incident. The individual, a resident of Salyababa, remains in custody. Investigations revealed the suspect targeted vulnerable commuters to carry out the theft. The second school term for government and government-approved private Sinhala and Tamil schools begins today alongside the 4th stage of the first term for Muslim schools. This follows the conclusion of the previous academic stages on the 10th of the month. The Ministry of Education announced that the distribution of activity books for Grade 1 is currently underway, with all schools expected to receive their supplies by the 30th of April. The Department of Registration of Persons will resume all public services today, including the one-day issuance of national identity cards. Operations underwent a temporary suspension recently due to a fault in the computer system. Officials confirmed that the technical error is now resolved, allowing the full restoration of department activities.
Now for some news in brief.
The Department of Meteorology forecasts showers or thundershowers at most places of the island after 1 p.m, while fairly heavy falls above 75 millimeters are likely at some places in western, Sabaragamuwa, central, north central and southern provinces and in the Kurunegala district.
The business news on Gold FM.
Global oil prices rebounded by over 6% today after the closure of the Strait of Hormuz following mutual allegations of ceasefire violations by the United States and Iran. Brent crude jumped to $96.49 a barrel, while US West Texas Intermediate rose $90.38 per barrel as the US military seized the Iranian cargo ship. Tehran subsequently rejected a second round of peace talks despite threats of renewed airstrikes from President Donald Trump.
International news on Gold FM.
8 children aged between 1 and 14 died in a mass shooting in Louisiana following a domestic disturbance. The suspect, Shamar Elkins, shot 10 people before fleeing in a stolen vehicle and later died during a police pursuit. Louisiana mayor described the event as the worst tragedy in the city's history and confirmed that some victims remain hospitalized while investigations continue.
Entertainment news on Gold FM.
Revered country music songwriter Don Schultz died in a Nashville hospital on April 16 following a sudden illness. A member of the Country Music Hall of Fame, Schultz gained global recognition as the sole author of the iconic 1978 hit The Gambler, which became a signature career success for Kenny Rogers.
Sports news on Gold FM.
Manchester City move within 3 points of the Premier League summit after a monumental 2-1 victory over leaders Arsenal at the Etihad Stadium. Erling Haaland secured the winning goal to dismantle what was once a 9-point lead, swinging the title momentum firmly towards the defending champions. Pep Guardiola's side holds a game in hand and possesses the opportunity to leapfrog Arsenal by defeating Burnley on Wednesday night. While statisticians still favour Arsenal at 73%, the Gunners face a gruelling end to the season, having won only 1 of their previous 6 fixtures. That's it for now, but do join us once more at 8:30 for your news highlight. Bye for now.